This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
As Republican New Jersey Governor Christie prepares to enter the presidential race, we look at a case often cited as one of his crowning achievements during his time as U.S. Attorney, the case of the Fort Dix Five. In 2008, 5 men from suburban New Jersey were convicted of conspiring to kill American soldiers at the Fort Dix Army base. As U.S. Attorney, Christie was responsible for prosecuting the case. The Intercept has just published a piece re-examining the case. It's titled, "Christie's Conspiracy, the Real Story Behind the Fort Dix Five Terror Plot." The Intercept has also just released a short accompanying video that includes a lengthy interview with Burim Duka. 3 of his brothers were arrested in the plot and remain locked up. The video begins with then U.S. Attorney Christie speaking in 2007 from the steps of the federal courthouse in Camden, New Jersey.
The philosophy that supports and encourages jihad around the world against Americans came to live here in New Jersey and threaten the lives of our citizens through these defendants. Fortunately, law enforcement in New Jersey was here to stop them.
My oldest brother is Dritan Duka. The second oldest is Shane Duka. The third oldest is Elvir. My 3 brothers and 2 other defendants got arrested for conspiracy to attack a military base here in New Jersey, Fort Dix military base. We used to go out in the wintertime because we owned a roofing company. We couldn't work wintertime when it was snowing. So we would go on a vacation with just us guys.
There he is, he's coming.
Here comes Shane right there, look at him. Yo, this is nice, so it's a nice view.
We were recording, of course, so that everybody could have a little clip of what we did when we were in the Poconos.
I'll record. Oh, want me to record? Allahu Akbar.
And then me and my brother Suleiman, we went to Circuit City, transferred the cassette that we had into a DVD for each person that went to Poconos with us so they could have one.
We're at the range for the second time. Gonna try to shoot some more. This is what we did yesterday.
Hey, throw something up. Throw a snowball up for me. Good job. Okay. Good job.
Allahu Akbar. Allah.
Man, this thing was a
The Circuit City club turned in the video to the police and said these people are shouting out Allahu Akbar, which means God is great, while shooting weapons. Then the FBI started investigating us from that day on. They got 2 informants involved. Mahmoud Omar, an Egyptian guy, and Bisnik Bakali was an Albanian informant. He was mainly here for us Duka brothers. Bakali, because we stood with him more, he would always try to bring up topics about like politics, what's going on in the news. He's always trying to bring up jihad. Why are we not doing nothing? How come we're not overseas? Older people and women are doing stuff and we're not. He would always try to get on our bad side, but we always played it cool.
You learn the Quran, you go and buy Quran, and you're not fighting for Muslims. You still question yourself, why you're not fighting for Muslims?
Yeah, but this has nothing to do with that. We don't have the evolved doing that. But
Still question yourself. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, don't say that, because we are working for Pakistan. If you want to fight, and you say hinjab,
we're talking about certain death. You put bombs on your body and you hit a ball.
Yeah, I said, boy. I'd rather go out.
Up to you.
I can't do that.
If you guarantee me I will go in heaven, I do it. Would you guarantee me that?
No.
The informant Omar hung out with our friend Schnur. Schnur wasn't like my brothers. He said all types of crazy things, and together the informant and Schnur came up with a plot to attack Fort Dix. The informant needed Schnur to say that my brothers were in on the plot. And once the government seen that my brothers weren't in and knew nothing about it, they created an illegal gun deal. Mahmoud Omar knew that my brothers were into guns. He spent a lot of time with us. He set up the deal for my brothers to buy some weapons, and the weapons were provided by the FBI.
This is a big 15. What's the difference between 16 and 15? 16 is more powerful. 16 more powerful? 16 is a little military. 10 times less. Yeah, sure.
An excerpt from a new video, The Intercept, directed by Razan Ghayalini on the Fort Dix 5. The video goes on to include a confession from one of the informants, Mahmoud Omar, who says the Duca brothers were innocent of any crime.
I don't know nothing about those guys, and I said that in court, those Ducas. They didn't do nothing, and I never heard nothing from them. They're good and kind people.
Right now, by Murtaza Hussain, a reporter at The Intercept. His latest piece is Christie's Conspiracy, the real story behind the Fort Dix 5 terror plot. Still with us is former FBI agent Mike German. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Murtaza. Talk about this case and what now Governor, then U.S. Attorney Christie had to do with it, and who still remains in jail.
So in 2007, this represented one of the most high-profile terrorism investigations in the post-9/11 era. At the time, it was reported that a group of men were planning to attack the Fort Dix military base, Albanian immigrants to the U.S., and it was trumpeted as a major uncovering of a major plot against the U.S. Christie was then U.S. Attorney at the time, and he was integrally responsible for prosecuting this case and generating the charges against these men.
And explain what happened next.
So after the Duca family went on a family vacation to the Poconos, they dropped off a video of their trip to a local circuit city. In the video, they had done horseback riding, skiing, and they'd gone to a shooting range, and they'd peppered their phrases with Arabic phrases, as people tend to do who are of Muslim background. The circuit city people got alarmed by this. They reported the police. The police forwarded the tape to the FBI, and the FBI proceeded to introduce 2 informants into the lives of the Duca brothers. These informants befriended them over the course of about 18 months. They recorded them. They tried to goad them into saying things. They tried to get them to commit a criminal act. And they were never successful. There was another man, not one of the Duca brothers, who went along with the informant's plot separately. But the Ducas themselves never even knew about a Fort Dix plot. And then in 2007, when they were arrested, they were charged with this plot to attack the base. And they ended up being convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment, and they're all still serving life today.
Mike German, could you talk about the increasing use of FBI informants following 9/11 and what the effects of that were, and to what extent that policy still continues today?
Sure. So after 9/11, terrorism became the FBI, actually preventing terrorism became the FBI's #1 mandate. So they transferred a lot of resources and agents to working counterterrorism. They expanded the Joint Terrorism Task Forces and expanded the informants dedicated to counterterrorism work. And this technique, informants are not new. Law enforcement has, as long as there's been law enforcement, there have been informants. And I did undercover work, often with informants. But what has changed is this methodology. Number one, typically you would not use an informant who had a more serious criminal record than the subject of the investigation. That just didn't make any sense, that you would put somebody who's a really bad person to just ensnare somebody else when you don't have significant evidence that that person's engaged in violent crime. So it's who's being used to target who. And then the use of these techniques where the inducement and the coercion is so significant that it would not have survived muster. I mean, before 9/11, if I had asked the FBI to open an undercover terrorism investigation, and told them that the person was not associated with any real terrorist group and had no weapons of their own and had no plot of their own, that was all part of the operation, they would have probably sent me to psych counseling.
Murtaza.
And that was exactly the case in the Fort Dix case. There was no terrorist group, there was no plot to speak of, and there were no weapons until the informant was introduced in the lives of these men.
And Chris Christie specifically, the man who might well run for president of the United States.
Chris Christie was U.S. attorney at the time of this case, and he was responsible for prosecuting the case. And in that clip you just saw, he gave this very incendiary press conference where he trumpeted these arrests in the immediate aftermath. For Christie, now governor, this case was huge to his career. He still discusses it to this day. He cites it as an example of defeating terrorism on his watch, when in reality the facts of the case are very troubling. It was a very dubious investigation and a very aggressive and malicious prosecution, which resulted in sending a number of men who may well have been completely innocent to jail for the rest of their lives.
What did Chris Christie know?
Chris Christie, well, we don't know what he knew at the beginning of this case, but as the trial started to develop, it became very clear that there was a very glaring absence of evidence against the Duca brothers in this case. And this was even acknowledged at trial by the judge during the sentencing hearing when he delivered the sentences. He noted the lack of direct evidence and said that it did not seem to bother him nor the jury. So this is just indicative of the way the callous...
So is it being appealed?
The brothers have launched a series of appeals.
Where are they imprisoned?
Two of the brothers are in ADX Supermax. They've been solitary for a number of years.
In
Colorado, Florence, Colorado, one of the most harsh and brutal prisons in the country. In solitary confinement 23 hours a day. They have not seen their children or touched them since this happened. And their lives have been destroyed. And for what purpose?
Well...
And I think one of the things it shows is how the FBI has this concept of terrorist radicalization, that if you have these ideas, you are on a path to terrorism, so therefore it justifies using these extraordinary measures to pull you along the line, even though empirical studies do not support that theory of radicalization that the FBI holds to.
We want to thank you both for being with us, and we will certainly link to your piece. Murtaza Hussain is a reporter at The Intercept. His latest piece, Christie's Conspiracy, the real story behind the Fort Dix 5 terror plot. And thanks again to Mike German, former special undercover agent for the FBI, now at the Brennan Center.